Hello, friends. Hello, Lou. How are you?
Very good. How are we doing today?
Good, good. Thank you. Thanks, everybody, for joining us. We are going to be doing verses 23 and 24 today, chapter 13. And I was just talking to my wife about this, and I said, we have had some very interesting portions of the Gita, and some of them are sort of mundane and somewhat boring, uh, but they're necessary to do. And so I'm giving you sort of like what is it called? A disclaimer that if you want to skip to a more important part, it's up to you, but it's my duty to put everything down. And I hope that you listen to this because it's necessary for you to learn this. But I'll try to make it succinct and brief and to the point so you at some register at some level. Anyway, verse
I
23.
haven't found a mundane section of this. Plus, I think a lot of times these concepts loop around to things we've done in the past, and that repeating and that frequency helps land some of these concepts for us, I think.
You are the best, Lou. You always come up with a very positive way of looking at things. So that's good. So thank you. Verse 23 says, the Supreme Purusha, which is the spirit, life force, Atman, Brahman, in the body, in this body, is thus said to be the witness, the permitter, the supporter, the enjoyer, the great Lord, and the Supreme Self. It's sort of self evident what he's saying that once God, Atman, Brahman, the life force, the energy, consciousness, there are a million names for that which gives us life, gives every living entity a life, million things. So once that goes into the body, the prakriti, the physical matter, it comes to life. Till that time, it's dead, right? We've talked about this. In this body, we tend to look at ourselves in the mirror and say, that's me, when you look at the body. We identify with the prakriti, and the next chapter, verse 14, fascinating chapter, is all about gunas. And the prakriti has the gunas, sattvic, rajasic, tamasic, and we tend to identify with that. We tend to say, oh, I'm so active. I get up early in the morning and I start to do my physical exercise. I go jogging, I'm this, I'm that, I'm fast, I'm good at my work, etc. We don't identify with the Purusha. We don't identify with the spirit. If you can tease out, it's like a needle in a haystack. If you can tease out your focus on that needle, on that Atman, then then that's your way to self-realization. It's like putting your hand up and saying, look, focus on my thumb, and then you keep looking at the thumb, but then you start twiddling your fingers. You say, no, don't look at the fingers, look at the thumb. And you tend to distract yourself from the thumb to the fingers very easily.
Right.
But in this body, you have to recognize Purusha, the pure I am, the pure consciousness before it gets to be a conditioned consciousness. It is the witness of everything. It starts looking at everything you do. You could be a terrorist, you could be a saint. And the Atman will not stop you from doing good things. It will not stop you from doing bad things. It neither does, nor does it stop you from doing. It's just there as a witness, looking on it as a bystander. It is the witness of the Prakriti. You look at yourself and you see yourself doing, you look at yourself, you get injured. Have you ever noticed that if you have a very sharp instrument, sometimes you get cut? You don't even realize until a few minutes, seconds later, and say, whoa, look at that, I got cut, look at the blood flowing. Oh, ow, now it hurts. So it's the same sort of thing because the Prakriti and the Purusha are two separate things. That's a bad analogy because the reason you don't notice the pain right away is for other reasons, not because of Purusha and Prakriti. But even in deep sleep, Purusha and Prakriti are in their pure form with no attachment to the gunas. At that time, when you're in deep sleep, the Prakriti and the Purusha are in their pure form without any attachment. So here he says, first, the Atman is just a witness, just allows anything to happen without interfering. Then it says it's a permitter. It allows you, it permits you to do things. It says, fine, you want to do it, do it. I don't allow you, I don't criticize you for doing it, I don't support you for doing it, but go ahead. The next is a filler, a supporter, whatever you want to do. It's a filler supporter. That's known as a bharta. Bharta in Hindi, for those of us who know Hindi, bharta means like if you take an eggplant and you mash it, that's a bharta. But that's not what it means over here. This is a filler.
Yep.
Then comes enjoyer. Excuse me. So an enjoyer, we'll talk about each one of these. Then comes a great lord. So when you are doing something, any kind of work, it is necessary for you to recognize that when you're doing something bad, there's a part of your conscience, a very bad action, a part of your conscience, which is part of your intellect, except that it's a subtle part of your intellect. Remember this, your intellect is the one that looks at whatever your mind says it wants. The intellect is supposedly the king at the top of the heap and looks at the mind and says, what, you want to do that? That's your desire? And oftentimes, most people's mind, 99.9%, the mind is more powerful than the intellect. So it just does what it wants to do.
Right.
And the subtle part of the intellect says, that is the conscience. It's called sukshma buddhi in Sanskrit. That conscience says, what you did was not good, mind. And it keeps disturbing the mind. Right. And it keeps bothering it. And the mind becomes disturbed and agitated when so when it's disturbed and agitated, imagine that we die and we take that same mind and intellect into the space above, wherever it is. We call it heaven or hell. Yeah. And that mind with the conscience, all the things that you're disturbed about, it keeps disturbing the intellect, and the conscience keeps disturbing the mind over and over again until it comes back to birth as a new baby. That is known, if the disturbance is constant, it's known as hell. That's why they say when you die, you're going to go to hell. And the hell is because the conscience keeps pricking you to say, why did you do that? Why did you do that? And the more bad things you do, the more hell you suffer after you die. Whereas a person who's done nothing but good says, Atman says, the intellect and the conscience says there's nothing to bother him about. You did good, everything was good. Just rest until you are born again. Your vasanas are to continue to do good things. That person is in heaven because he has nothing that bothers him. So the Atman only enlivens you to do things. No matter what action an entity, a human being takes, the Atman doesn't, other than give it life, doesn't do anything. Now, when the same action is for a good purpose, then the Atman, through the conscience, so it works in a strange way. The Atman enlivens the intellect enlivens the consciousness. The conscience says, you're doing a good thing. Good. Keep going. And it's almost as if the Atman is the enlivener. It gives you energy. It's a supporter. It's the filler. It's the bharta that says, you are now, go. And you will notice that when you're doing good things, it meets far less resistance than if you're doing something bad, where you yourself are anxious about doing it, afraid of getting caught, fearful of what the results will be or the consequences would be. So the conscience allows you to go ahead and do good things. So that is where he says, that's the filler, that's the provider. Then comes the enjoyer. When you're doing good things, as you get spiritually better, the good things actually make you feel good about what you're doing. So then you become the enjoyer. Life becomes full of enjoyment because you're happy. There's nothing to disturb you. Your conscience doesn't disturb you. Your conscience doesn't disturb you. Your actions don't disturb you. So without any resistance from the conscience or the intellect, it's like the Atman is saying, go ahead, I'm encouraging you to do this action.
Right.
Similarly, when you are in the spot where you are ready to learn about these subtle ideas that you're learning about now, it is almost as if a guru, a teacher, comes to you. Almost everybody I've spoken to says, I heard your lecture, I heard you, I heard Swami such and such. At the right time, I was looking for it, and I don't know how it happened, coincidence perhaps, but it happened at the exact time that I was looking for somebody. And it's not a coincidence.
Yeah.
When it's a permitter, Atman is a permitter. When it is the right time, the guru will appear for you. You'll just find it, and you'll see that again and again. When you're doing good things, doors open for you. I can give you personal examples at some time how these things happen. The next one is supporter. As you grow spiritually, your actions become selfless. Now, doors really start opening for you, because when you're doing an action that is selfless, you would be surprised how many doors just open up that you thought were absolutely closed. Obstacles are removed. The selfless action gets support from an unknown force and unforeseen places that you can never think of. The selfless action becomes fulfilled automatically, and Atman, Brahman, acts like a supporter of you. And good things happen. Assets, money, power, force comes to your corner when you least expect it. The next one is enjoyer. As the person who is selfless proceeds, he is selfless, he really enjoys life. Atman plays the role of the enjoyer, because don't forget, the Atman is also, as we said in our previous episodes, the Atman is combined with the gunas, and the Atman enjoys whatever it is that you are enjoying. So the selfless actions causes the Atman to enjoy. Then the Atman and you become the great Lord. Why the great Lord? Because when you are selfless, you are self-sufficient. You don't need somebody else's praise. You don't need somebody to pat you on the back and say you're doing a good job. And you don't worry about people criticizing you. You just say, this is what I ought to do. I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
And when you are self-sufficient, you're happy. You feel nobody can control you, because you are not under anybody else's control in that respect. You don't care what people think of you. You don't care about the praise, and you don't care about the criticism. You're a great Lord, like a king. You have command over everything that you survey. And in the last one, he says, you become the supreme self. That means the Atman, the life force within us, merges with the Brahman and becomes one, as if the river becomes one with the ocean. So I think we did everything here. Let me look at my notes. The self or Atman is neutral. The Atman does not do anything, nor does it not do anything. Whatever you do has nothing to do with the Atman. It stands by as a witness. However, when you pursue self-realization, as you are on that path, there seems to be a force that is encouraging it. All right, so now we come to verse 24. Verse 24 says, he who knows Purusha, spirit, and Prakriti, matter, together with the gunas of qualities of Prakriti, although living in whatever way he or she is living, he is not born again. So this is reflecting on what happens after a self-realized person becomes realized during the lifetime, and then what happens after he dies. So what he's saying is, the Purusha, God, Atman, the energy that gives us life, is residing in this Prakriti. And let's say a person's 30 years old and he becomes self-realized. And he doesn't die till he's 80 years old. From the age of 30 till the age of 80, he is living as a self-realized person. What is he like? Are all self-realized people the same? No. I mean, Jesus Christ was self-realized at an early age, and till he was no more on this earth, he lived a certain way. And he was a very kind, benevolent person, not aggressive. Krishna also self-realized at a very young age, also no longer on this earth after a certain age. During that time, Krishna was very aggressive, very aggressive. He said to Arjuna, look, these are bad people on the field. They need to be killed, because you tried very hard. We both tried to negotiate with them. We made treaties. They didn't listen. They're bad for the morality of the country, you need to go kill them. You're a warrior, you're a king, you have this big army, that's what you do. You're a warrior, you fight, go fight. Can you imagine Jesus Christ telling anybody to go and fight and kill hundreds of people? I don't know. I doubt it.
Yeah.
But people are different. Self-realized people are different. And what that is it's like saying the momentum, of a car. If you're going at a certain speed and you turn off the engine, you turn the engine off, the car sort of will keep going, even though you've turned the engine off.
Right.
It's not propelling anymore in the same direction, but it has to keep going until the momentum stops. So there are what are known as prarabdha vasanas, vasanas that we are born with. A self-realized person is born with certain vasanas. He may have a vasana to sing. He may have a vasana to be aggressive. He may have a vasana to keep talking. So those vasanas will continue, and only when they're exhausted, whether they're exhausted at age 77 or age 80 or whatever, only then will that person leave this earth. So, and that's a whole other concept to say, when does a person actually die? When those vasanas are fulfilled. No matter until that time. There's a very interesting true story about a man who is I think he's called the luckiest man in the world. You cannot, if you look him up on Wikipedia or on YouTube, you'll see how many times he was like, you would bet everything you have to say this is going to kill him. And it happened to him again and again and again, many years, until he became like a saint. And he says, God has to be on my side, because otherwise, why would this happen? He just kept saying, look it up, it's fun.
Yep.
But you don't die, we don't die until something happens within you that your vasanas say, okay, I can't fulfill my vasanas anymore, and you die. You don't do it consciously, it just happens. That's a complicated thing to talk about. We will talk about it at some time, not right now. Anyway, the self-realized person then, when those prarabdha vasanas are exhausted, then he dies. But during that time, from the time he becomes self-realized till his prarabdha vasanas are exhausted, he will keep living as he was born. So this says, though living in whatever way, just those 5 words, though living in whatever way, speaks of why these self-realized people are different. Do you have a question, Lou?
No.
No, okay. So if you know the self, and also you know matter and its matter's gunas, and how they relate to each other, how the matter and the self relate to each other, as well as the gunas, you know Brahman. That's when you know Brahman. An enlightened person has identified with the self and knows that the spirit, the self, the consciousness that he thinks with, is different from matter and is different from the gunas of that matter. If you identify with matter, you lose the Atman in self, and if you become involved in the material world. So try and focus. If you're looking at something, if you're saying, okay, here's my phone, I'm going to keep looking at it. As long as you keep looking at it, you're focused over there. You should be focused on, what is it that allows me to see this phone? What is it that allows me to see my hand in front of me? Not that I'm seeing the hand. Focus on what it is that is allowing you to see, to think, to be conscious, to be able to speak. That helps. One who recognizes the Purusha as his own self, the life force, the Atman, Aham Brahmasmi, Tat Tvam Asi, I am that. He is still aware of the world and the Prakriti and the Gunas, but he is free. So the Prakritis deal with the Purusha and cannot exist without Purusha. Prakriti, the Gunas, cannot exist without the life force, right? That's obvious. You die. Just like when you're asleep, you have a dream. You fall asleep and you have a dream.
Mm-hmm.
That dream, where did it come from? It came from your mind,
Right.
The waker's mind. Although when you're in the dream, you think, this is self-existent. What are you talking about? Where did it come from? You don't know. If I could talk to you when you were in a dream and I said, where did this dream come from? You say, what are you talking about? This is it.
Yeah.
This self-existent. It didn't come from anywhere. I am walking through this forest and there's trees all around me and beautiful smell. What do you mean, where did it come from? But then when you wake up, the dream's gone. Where's the self-evident? Where's the self-existent? Where did that dream go? A dream folded back into where it came from, which is you. That dream folded back into you. So Prakriti, the gunas, all come from Brahman, from Atman. When it goes, it folds back into Brahman. So until that time, you have to recognize that you should be focusing more on the Brahman, not on the Prakriti, because it's just a dream. So another example is that of the snake and the rope. This is given in all the Upanishads, that you look at a snake, look at a rope in the garden in the twilight, and you say, oh my goodness, that's a snake. You're misapprehending, you're misperceiving that rope, and instead you see a snake. Now, where did that snake come from? Just like the dream came from the waker, that snake came from the rope.
Right.
If were it not for the rope being present there under the bushes in the twilight, you would never have seen a snake. Now, you remove the rope, what happens? The snake's gone. You put a light on the rope and you say, oh, that's just a rope, it's not a snake. Immediately, the snake is gone because you see the rope as it is.
Right.
That is what this Upanishads are talking about, that you focus the light on you and you will see not the snake, but the rope. You will see not the Prakriti, not the body, but yourself as the Purusha. When a person realizes the self while he's still alive, he has now seen the true Purusha, but he is still what he was born with. Jesus Christ was still carried his inherent personality with him. Buddha carried his inherent personality with him. Krishna carried the inherent personality with him while after they were self-realized until they were no more. Those are the prarabdha vasanas. So we are consciousness living through matter. Keep that in mind. And we need to focus on ourselves as consciousness. When you do that, you recognize that you, through the body, are the perceiver. You, the consciousness, the Atman, you are the perceiver. You see things, you smell things, you hear things, but through the body, you're the perceiver.
Right.
Through your mind, you are the one who feels emotions. But it's not that you are the emotions. Through your intellect, you are the thinker. Those thoughts come to you through the intellect, but you are not the intellect. You are just a consciousness that's perceiving, that's feeling these emotions, that's thinking these thoughts. So when you're dreaming, you are deluded and you think you know the dreamer. You do not know them because they're separated. Only when you wake up, you see that. So that is verse 24. And like I said at the beginning of this episode, this may seem a little mundane to you. My apologies. But this is very, very necessary for you to have this foundation as we keep going on. So
this is not mundane. This is the key point, isn't it? To understand that you are not the body, you are not the mind, you are beyond that. You are just, that's your vehicle. You're observing that. You aren't your emotions, you aren't your thoughts, you are observing those emotions and thoughts.
I think you're very close to being self-realized, Lou.
I don't know about that. But.
All right, friends, thank you very much. And I hope you will see us at episode 140. Lou, what do you think about that?
That's right. I'm ready to go.
All right. See you next time, friends. Bye-bye.